Okay, so Hell's Kitchen, let's talk about it. Now personally, I love seeing the prototype version of Virgilia shouting about lamb sauce, which, honestly, it's kinda messed up that someone somehow turned a lamb into sauce. But aside from that process, of which I'd love to see, it truly is beautiful that I can turn on my TV, scratch that shit, I ain't got a TV, this is 2023. It's beautiful that I can turn on my PC, go to a pirating site, and see someone get a mental breakdown on camera. Technology is truly beautiful. Okay, that aside, Hell's Chicken, let's talk about it. It's the first big event Limbus Company has, and I was thinking that this event would set the bar for future events. And I'm just gonna come out of the closet and say it, this event fucking slaps, but boy, does it have one huge glaring issue. And in case you don't know what that is, let me help you, right? Okay, so step one, go to the Steam store, right? Okay, then search Limbus Company and actually download the fucking game, because if you don't know what the problem is, there is no shot you played the event. Or you like mirror dungeons, and if that's the case, I'm gonna have to be right back. I'm about to call in a very aggressive euthanization. But I'm gonna talk about the flaws later. For now, let's talk about the story. Straight up, this is one of the funniest parts of the game. Seeing the cooking gang war commence and very shortly afterwards, seeing Gregor distort was hilarious. We saw that man's sanity crumble way more than anything in Chapter 1 was able to do. In just 5 cutscenes, this man had his confidence shattered, allies betrayed him, and cooking skills rightfully shitted on. But with the comedy, we could actually get to see a lot of the character development. Yi Song was outed as a fucking dumpster diving raccoon. Due to that one time Virgilius became a dad and whipped out the belt, Dawn was a ton more reserved. Which it really isn't saying much. That's like saying Vlad the Impaler has toned down his violence. Like, he's still slaughtering people, but he just isn't impaling them as much as he did in the past. Sinclair is a ton more open with the group. Deadass, in the first 2 chapters he barely spoke. Probably due to the fact that after saying the mildest shit, Heathcliff hit a home run on his cranium. But after his past was exposed in chapter 3, we can now see he's much more comfortable with the group. He actually talks to them instead of being emo in the corner, and was deadass surrounded by females on Ryoshu's side, truly cementing him as the Rizzler, despite the fact that they were hurling immense insults at his capabilities. But he is now the de facto translator for Ryoshu. On the other hand, Roydion adopted another child by the name of Dawn, so I suppose she has twins now. Wheatus was outed as having mommy energy, which is only serving to make the cult of Wheatus more unstable, but that's a problem for us to deal with in the future. Ryoshu actually talked with the group, which is rare to see, yet most of the time she just talks about her own one-liners. Heathcliff's most violent act was slamming a plate on someone's face, which means he's improved leaps and bounds. And Mersault had the most on display. We thought he didn't talk at all. Then he ate the most vile food known to mankind and turned into one of the goats of rapping. Sang Rap God, showing Eminem how to improve his shit. Redid Kanye's music so a racist ain't the one who sang it, no 21 Jump Street needed. And finished it off with a remake of Fuck the Police. He renamed it to Fuck That Food. Turns out he has a lot of thoughts, yet doesn't talk about them out loud as many just can't handle the fire he spits. But it's cool to see an actual grasp of his personality, as there wasn't much to see there at all. And let me pull a Sunny V2 real quick, but hold on the JK Rowling and highlight this comment, which talks about the personalities of the sinners and how they interact with one another. And that's what I view to be the best part about this event. Now, it has even more comedy, which the game already has a lot of. And I've heard some people wanting it to be scaled back, and I can see where they're coming from. But I think a short event like this is perfect for comedy. Because I've seen time and time again stories that will introduce a character and 3 seconds later do something dark with them and try to make you give a shit. But most of the time, I don't. Hell, One Piece spends like 10 chapters on a flashback to make what happens in it more impactful. Which is why if they made this event as some dark story where we had to give a damn about the restaurant owner, I wouldn't give a shit. I don't know him and I don't care about him. Except for his muscles, dude is built like a pissed off refrigerator. But instead, the event focuses on displaying how distortions are and how to combat them, something that will definitely play a role in the future. At the same time, it shows how the sinners have grown closer, as in chapter 1 they were just on the same team, nothing more. But with them actively choosing sides in a fun cooking war, we can see that they've become closer to being allies, and it feels very natural. It shows this to us with genuinely funny comedy on top of it. And at the end, it hints to some big shit that's gonna happen in Chapter 4. And that is where I imagine the comedy of this event will pay off. Now, what do I mean about that? Well, let me throw out an example. A Steins Gate is a visual novel and also an anime that has one of the best stories I've ever read. In the first half of it, there is a ton of just fucking around comedy, and it slowly builds up to something big. And in the second half, where there becomes a lot more at stake, you are emotionally invested in the characters. You want them to be happy because the first act made you know them and actually care about them. So when shit hits the fan, you aren't thinking, yeah, bitch, who cares? The comedy in the first half made the tragedy in the second half hold much more impact. And in Limbus, the tragedy in Chapter 3 wouldn't hit as hard if we didn't see the clown show of Chapter 2. So 3.5 looks to be fun as fuck, but I think whatever Samjo is cooking at the end will result in some very heavy shit later. And that is why I love the story in this event. Add on the music and it becomes very easy to read through, which is what you want from an event. And the combat was interesting as well. I wanted to see how the game performed if sanity was harder to get, and this event had enemies that made getting to 45 SP a struggle. And it was really fun to play in. At the beginning I needed to plot out my attacks, and later on I was able to use ego to get the sinners to max sanity, and from there they beat ass. The gameplay was enjoyable, but the bitch ass grind was not. Yeah, it's time to strip away all the sunshine and rainbows. Let's talk about the grind. Holy shit, what were they cooking when they made the rewards require 6,000 plushies to get all of? I can imagine wanting people to go through the mirror dungeon a bit to see all of what it has to provide, but making it so we must do that shit roughly 34 times is insane. And it's 34 times if you have all of the event's egos and IDs, which you won't have until you hit 2200 plushies. However, the worst part is that 3.5 may only take around 10 to 15 minutes, but you actually have to think for the final boss. For a motherfucker we're gonna be killing so much to where they look like an NPC from a Dynasty Warriors game, he's too strong. Don't get me twisted, if you play the game he isn't anything special, but if I'm expected to farm this dungeon over and over, I should be able to just click win rate and do something else in the meantime. The grind feels like some bullshit an MMO would pull. If a gacha game had this amount of grind in their events, it wouldn't last long. Because for a phone game, and hell, even for a regular game, it's too much. They needed to tone it down to where at 2,000 you can get all the rewards available at 6,000. I obviously don't expect them to update this event, but I will say that in the future, events should not be this grindy as it will burn the players out. You don't want the player base dreading an event because of the manual. That's right, a manual, as there isn't much of an auto or sweep for this grind. Or they should make it like the new hire event where you can spend sanity wherever and that'll count towards the event. That was great, as just a week of normal playing would be enough to get all the rewards instead of having to grind like this. And the worst part about the grind is that the gacha is able to shorten it. I don't like how an annoying grind is able to be shortened by spending money to roll for some units that will give me more event currency. I'ma keep it a buck. If a different gacha game did this, I'd be calling their asses greedy as fuck. An annoying arbitrary grind was made, and the keys to shorten it are locked behind gambling. That's fucked. And it also doubles as a great metaphor for life. But because it's Project Moon, and it's very obvious to see that they aren't greedy, I'm gonna chalk it up to incompetence. Basically Hanlon's razor. I have faith in Project Moon. It's never felt like they were scamming me. But this grind is awful, and making it so gacha is able to shorten it is worse. And on top of that, even if just the event IDs and ego were able to do the same, I wouldn't like that either. As it means if I wanted to be optimal with the event, I wouldn't be able to use the team I've spent time building up. I'd have to use other units. Which, yeah, let's be honest, Gregor's event ID is kind of ass. That is, unless I'm tripping and in the final mirror dungeon I don't need to bring them in. I know in the stage fights they could be on the sidelines and you're good, but I believe in the mirror dungeon they need to be in your team of 5 to grant the bonus. And if I'm wrong, please correct me on that. But overall, the story, gameplay, and music of the event go hard. It makes me excited to see what events they'll make in the future, but the grind is something they really need to tone down. I'm of the mindset that players shouldn't have to spend too much time grinding in a gacha game, as that can lead to burnout. So the event would be perfect if players only had to clear every stage and farm the last mirror dungeon like 5 times to get all the rewards. And the gacha shouldn't be an avenue to improve the problem of the grind. There shouldn't have been a problem with it, and gambling shouldn't have been a way to fix it. But I doubt Project Moon is trying to nickel and dime their players, as if they wanted to do that, they probably wouldn't have given us north of 60 pulls in compensation. It's their first big event, and I feel like players should be vocal if they think the grind is too much. so Project Moon could lower it for future events. But aside from that flaw, Hell's Kitchen was amazing to play through, and the quality of the story makes me hyped for what they got cooking in the future. Also, Sinclair is now in the top 3 waifus for Limbus Company. Bite me.